Hi everybody, this is Lynn. I'm sorry I had a few technical issues. Facebook has changed some of their settings. So today is Friday, 27th of March 2020. This is the first of our Filo Fridays. I hope that some of you are there. Let me know. Everybody, hi. I'm just saying hi to get the thing started. Yeah, next time I'll schedule it so that it will go and give you a reminder. It's something new. Hi, Mary Kay, how are you? I'm going to be asking those riddles in just a little while, but after we get a few more people on the call, I'm going to start with what I've been preparing today. First of all, just not wanting to be the bearer of... Mary Kay, can you hear me okay? You're the only one that seems to be... Oh, Jean seems to be in there as well. Hi, Jean. Please do, oh, Vanessa, hello. Do please let me know if you can hear me, okay? That would be very helpful to me. Before I start on what I want to do for today is just want to bring your attention to the statistics for Italy. They're pretty dire. I hate to be the bearer of, hi Linda, I hate to be the bearer of sad news. Is this streaming in the group or not? Have I put this in the wrong place? Where have I put this? I'm seeing people who aren't in our group come in, and that's fine, but I'm confused because I was supposed to be streaming inside the group. Hold on a second. I am inside the group, you're saying. Okay, so it's not just on my line. Okay. Can somebody just check inside the group, make sure that it's streaming inside the group, because I'm a bit baffled. Okay, so, yeah, today the news from Italy is a bit dire, so I don't want to dwell on that, but I do want to bring it to everybody's attention. Holy mackerel, what's going on? This is not streaming in the right place. This is supposed to be inside the Trentino genealogy group. All right, well, thank you, yeah, Rita, can some of you go in the group and say, for some reason I seem to be streaming outside the group, and I don't know why, which is a really dumb thing of me. Okay, Vanessa, yeah, I have no idea why it's not in the group. So could somebody, Mary Kay or Jean, can you go in the group and say that for some reason I'm streaming on my own line and I don't know why. Let me make it public. Not sure if, yeah, I think it is public. So let me just see. Okay, so anyway, hopefully it's public. It is public. Okay, so they can come over here. It's my mistake. Please forgive me. All right, so anyway, I've started this feature called Filo Friday because Filo is a form of storytelling. Yeah, it's in my line. I know, it's a mistake. It's my fault, Diane. So please get everybody over here because that's my fault. I won't do that next week. It's just Facebook's confusing me. Let me explain first of all what Filo is. Obviously, it's Friday, but Filo is a form of, hi Louise, I'm really sorry, I'm in the wrong place. Filo is a form of traditional storytelling. It literally means spinning, to weave or to spin. And it was used as a method of oral transmission of legends, of stories to bring families together. They all sat around and were warm around the animals and shared these stories to build, to build community, to bring families together, but also to make to pass on local histories and stories, and just to build that kind of solidarity. And I wanted to share something with you from a book that I have called Le Stagioni della Solidarietà, which means the Seasons of Solidarity. It is a book of, it's a really unusual book. It was published in 1980. It's a book of pictures and writings from Don Lorenzo Goetti, who was a priest in the 19th century who started the farmers' cooperative movement in Trentino. But it also has a lot of really interesting history that I'll share with you at some point. But also it has some really beautiful prose that is more like poetry, and that was written by an author named Mauro Neri. And there's one poem in the beginning called, it's not a poem, he calls it prose, called e a Sera a Scuola. And it's really beautiful, and I've read it many, many times, and today I felt very inspired and actually translated it. And yeah, can Jean and Louise and these people, can you bring people over from the group over here? Because I really am sorry, I put this in the wrong place. So I want the people in the group who are supposed to be here to come over. Anyway, let me read you my translation so you perhaps can understand. It is a bit metaphoric, and I think you'll get the feeling why I wanted to read this. And so this is my translation of Mauro Neri's lyrical prose from there. And in the evening at school, I'm almost ashamed, with my big, tormented, calloused hands, with fingernails black with earth and manure, with my moleskin trousers, my hat pulled over my eyes, my black cloak, dirty, coarse, and woolen over my shirt. I'm not accustomed to listening to the words of others. I listen to the sound of the wind, of the leaves, of the birds, the bells of my cows, the gurgling of the pot on the fire, the voice of my wife calling me, the buzz of my children playing in the woodshed, and the hatchet hitting the tree trunk, barely scratching the bark that is as hard as porphyry. Nobody has ever obliged me to speak more than I had to. The points of the game signaled with the eyes and the nose. The beasts in the stall understand well enough my grunts telling them to move a little bit here or there. My wife and my children, like me, speak little. But who knows why? In the evening, every evening, I change. To the warmth of the filo, my words flow out from me like a thread, embroidering ancient fabrics of legends and enterprises. My hands make them more careful in the carving of a whistle from the branch of a hazelnut tree. Even my clothes in the dark of the stall are unnoticed. Who knows why in the evening, every evening, I change. Now, then, I go to school, a school for the people, for us, contadini, farmers. My grandfather and my father would not believe it. We are 60, seated on benches, without books, notebooks, or pens, but with the books of our fields, with the notebooks of our meadows, and with the pens of our arms. We study. And the child sitting next to me, a boy of 10 years old, with black curly hair, whose eyes are fixed on whoever is speaking in that moment and seems to drink in everything that is being said. That little boy is no different from me. It is beautiful, at least in the evening, to listen to one another. And again, that's my translation of a lyrical prose by Mauro Neri. I just thought it was so beautiful, and it completely sums up what filo is about bringing the community together, especially, well, just in general. But I think right now we need that more than ever. Some of you have seen the picture for this event that depicts filo. It's a picture from a village called Raguli in Trentino. And it's there. If you go there, you can see it on the wall. It's a mural. It's really, really beautiful. And it gives you a feeling of how the families come together in the stalls. So anyways, that's why we're here. That's what this is about. That's what we're going to be doing on Fridays from now on. So, ciao, everybody who just came in. Okay, you can see and hear me. Thank you very much. Now let's get to the riddles. I asked you 2 riddles, and I'd love to see some of you answer. And one question is, the first riddle is, what do we Trentino genealogists owe to people like, and listen how I've worded it, people like King Henry VIII of England? It's a weird question, I guess. What do we people of Trentino, what do we genealogists who specialize in Trentino owe to people like King Henry VIII of England? Any guesses? Anybody want to make any guesses? I want to see some guesses. No guesses? Yes? Ciao? Any guesses on the first riddle? What do we owe to people like King Henry VIII of England? Okay, more people joining, more people joining. You're going to have to listen earlier to the Filo poem I said. Church of England started keeping records. No, but yes. Yes and no. Council of Trento. Yes. Trenton Thompson? Council of Trento Thompson. Jean, I think you tagged somebody incorrectly, but I understand what you're saying. You're both kind of correct, and yes, you're both partially correct. So let me tell you, for the sake of everybody, yes, the Council of Trento. But what's that got to do with Henry VIII? What's that got to do with Henry VIII? Documentation and education. That's what we have to be thankful for. But what has that got to do with Henry VIII? Well, I'll give a little bit of history. I won't go into it too much because I want to get into question 2 after that. Henry VIII was supposedly a Reformationist, but not really, because if you know much about him, he's most famous for having 6 wives, 2 of which he killed, and the second wife, Anne Boleyn, that his marriage to her is very famous for one reason. He wanted to have his first marriage annulled, and the Pope would not allow it, and because he didn't get his way, he broke off from the Pope. Now, he then, yes, he started the Church of England. It's very known here in Britain. Maybe in the States they don't. They're not aware of all of that history, but maybe. But he started so he broke away from the Catholic Church, but he lived from 1491 to 15. He was right in the same period as Reformationists who came before him, and in many ways he was not for Protestant Reformation until it served him. So I kind of asked a tricky question. I wasn't saying what do we owe to him. I was saying people like him. So people say, like Martin Luther and others in that Reformation period, they caused a ripple in Christianity. And any time there has been, historically, a ripple in philosophy of Christianity, there's been a council. There's been many different ecumenical councils over the centuries. There were the Lateran councils, and then there were the Councils of Trento. Now, the Councils of Trento, there were 3. And some people said, yes, documentation. The Council of Trento, especially the last one, in from that came parish records, which is what we owe to that council, and also education, especially to the clergy in rural areas who weren't necessarily that educated up to that point. So there were huge reforms trying to improve the communication with the people to get them more into understanding what they were practicing as a faith, and of course keeping parish records. And without that, without the Council of Trento, Concilio di Trento, we would not have parish records. We wouldn't be here today talking about genealogy. So that's why we kind of owe things to him, but not to him directly, because I think he was a bit of an opportunist, but be that as it may, that's the way it is. So I showed you this book, and those of you who didn't hear the beginning of the call, please listen to the beginning because I read something about Philo there. I'm going to come back to that book on other calls because there's a lot in here about history that I think you're going to want to know. So let me show you this book. This is a book about the Council of Trento. Oops, sorry. There we go. There it is. And you can see the dates there, and it's because there were 3 of them. And the third one is really the one where all of the big changes, where they kind of, by that point, they gave up trying to reconcile Protestantism with Catholicism. They said, oh, well, let's codify what we have, and we'll make progress from there. So I've already mentioned that this was to do with parish records and education. So that's absolutely true. Now, the second question I asked you was, the second riddle was, how, if you're in the 1500s, notice the dates. Here's the 1500s. Whoa, sorry, I'm putting it all along. It's because it's backwards. And there you go, 1500, middle of the 1500s. How do you fit thousands of people and their horses of different nations into a small city of about 10,000 people. 10,000 people in Trento around that time in history. And the answer is it isn't easy. It wasn't easy. And Trento today only has about 117,000. Here in Bedford is about the same size, and we're not a city. So try to imagine quite small and also walled city at that time. So what happened is the Pope delegated, and this is actually explained in the beginning of the book by an author that I know some of you may have heard of, Alberto Folgerreiter. He delegated a man named Tommaso Sanfelice, who was all the way from down in Campania, down below Naples, and listen to the task he had to do. He was given a list of all the delegates and all the people who were going to come. He had to go around to all the houses in the city and find out how many beds were there, how many people had beds, how many people had stalls for horses, and try to calculate what there was for whom. And also, he had to find out were there nice homes for the cardinals so they could go in really, really nice places. Were there kind of medium homes for less elevated people. And then there were also kind of other people, servants. These people had tons of servants with them. And it was, so they had to figure out where were all these people going to go. There were thousands and thousands of people. I wrote a number here somewhere. Well, let's just put it this way. There were something like more than 2,000 people that had to fit in the city area itself, but then there were another 2,800 people, almost 3,000 people, and thousands of horses that they had to put in the outlying villages as far away as Civizzano. And it's so like really kind of far away, within a 10-mile radius. So try to imagine that they had to kind of come in every day or however often they came in. So this is, just wanted you to think about that. Here's a list of how what he found out. He discovered there were 57 prestigious homes for the cardinals to live in, 59 places for the prelates, 53 places for gentlemen, 348 places for servants. These are beds. And altogether he found about 1,000 beds and about 2,300 stables for horses in the city. And then, as I said, he had to find out another 2,700 in the outlying places. Now here's a little book this is an odd little book. Look how skinny it is. It's got about 10 pages. It's a reprint from 1562. It's an actual, just a photocopy of kind of like a list of everybody who attended the Council of Trento, just to give you an idea of what, of the kind of things. Isn't that a beautiful, beautiful frontispiece there? Beautiful. And that's the bishop's crest there, the archbishop. So, remind me. No, you can't remind me. I'll remind me. I want to tell you something about that in a minute. For example, the first person on the list is Ercole Gonzaga. He was a cardinal from Mantova. He was apparently he came from a noble family, son of a marquis. And Mantova's in Lombardia, like the province where all these things are happening right now. He brought with him, get this, 160 servants. 160 servants and 20 horses. Now I kept thinking, how do you have 20 horses? Well, I guess they had carriages, and maybe some people walked, and some people were coming from all over Europe, coming from Croatia, coming from Hungary, coming from all over, and they're all listed in here, which I think is really kind of cool. And this was actually reprinted in India because it's in the public domain. It's just a tiny little thing. But really, so the thing that also I found fascinating is not only did they have to find beds, he had to figure out, this Felice I was talking about, he had to figure out how to keep different ethnic groups in different places, because he was afraid that the Italians and the Germans and the Spanish and the French would all start fighting. And guess what? There were fights. there were some outbursts, maybe not amongst the cardinals, I hope, but certainly amongst some of the visitors. And so he had to kind of put different quarters of the city to put different ethnic groups of people so that they would stay here, stay here, stay here, and try to keep order. Try to imagine what that must have been like for that man. So I want to applaud him, that he managed to pull that off. Now, in this day, when we're looking at these amazing things that our governments are trying to do just to keep us safe, this is just one man trying to do one conference in a very small city 500 years ago, trying to keep it from all going pear-shaped. So anyways, we owe a lot to the Concilio of Trento. And here's another riddle. Who can guess, of those of you who know something about Trento, who can guess why it was held in Trento and not someplace like Mantova, where originally some people had suggested? Any guesses? Ah, there, Paul Donati's asking that very question. I'm asking. Any guesses why? Yes, they did billet them in private homes, Robin. Many of them did. Yes, because there weren't big hotels. There was no Hotel Americana in those days. It was in private homes. But also rich, wealthy people and ordinary people, depending on the status of the person. Anybody want to guess why it was held in Trento? I've been paused. Paused? Oh dear. Really? Am I back? Am I back? I didn't pause. I didn't hit anything. Midpoint for most travelers. No, that's not why. Good guess, not why. It's because, okay, thanks. I have no idea what happened there. The reason why it was chosen, thanks. The reason why it was chosen is that, well, two things. One is that the city already kind of had a multicultural presence. There was already German and Italian presence in the city, but the key thing, this is the key thing, Trento, the whole province, was ruled by, and I've mentioned this in some of my articles, was ruled by somebody called a prince bishop. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with that, still paused for you. Jean, I don't know. Everybody else says it's okay. Don't know why. Oh dear. Great food. No, yes, that probably is true. No, but it's because they were ruled by a prince bishop. And a prince bishop is a hybrid. It's a prince and a bishop. In other words, he's beholden to both the Pope and the Emperor, whereas cardinals were just beholden to the Pope, and people who were princes or kings or whatever, they were beholden to the Emperor. So the prince bishop was in a unique position that he was kind of beholden to both. He was both minor royalty and also a cardinal or an archbishop. So that's why. It's because he could kind of sit on both sides of the fence, and it felt a bit more neutral. You'll catch the reruns. I'm really sorry, Jean. I don't know what's happened there. So that's one of the reasons why it was chosen. Anyway, wanted to let you know some of that. So the point is that, good, I didn't end up being more than half an hour. I started with talking about filo. I read you some prose, kind of a lyrical prose, so if you didn't hear that, the riddle of what do we owe to people like Henry VIII, I'm talking about reformationists that caused a counter-reformation, which brought on the Council of Trento, which created parish records and more education for priests, which we wouldn't be here talking about this if that hadn't happened. And then also some of the really interesting things about how they had to find all these houses and running all around. Imagine everybody on horses with these entourages of 160 servants for one cardinal from the Pope, representative of the Pope. Try to imagine that. Oh, and here's one little tidbit also. None of the popes attended. It was one of the requests, actually, of the emperor that the Pope would not attend. So it was all cardinals and bishops and priests and whatnot. Anyway, I hope that, yes, and they had Genealogy for everybody. Yeah, that would be great. I hope that it's not like a story, but a little bit of a story. The next time when we meet, next Friday, what I want to do is I want to go to here, because Louise Genetti Roach asked, what can you tell us about why our ancestors left the province? And that's a really big question. And there's some really interesting information in here. And also today when I was cleaning up my house, because that's what you do when you're in lockdown, you kind of clean up sometimes, I found something I wrote several years ago when I first visited the province. And And it was my reflections on exactly that very question. And I got very emotional when I read what I had written. And this is, several years back. So I thought that would be an interesting place to go next. It's not in chronological order, but we can kind of feel that the intensity of what it took our ancestors to move from this place, like the way that Contadino was speaking about his farm and the winds and the everything, when he was talking like that, to leave that and immigrate to coal mines and God knows where else. So that's what I'm going to look at next week, and hopefully tell you a few different stories from there. I would love to hear your comments on this. Thank you for those who just joined, and I'm really sorry I didn't do this in the actual group. It's my error, but I will share this in the group, and I'm very glad that I met some new people coming in. So thank you very much. Please let me know what you thought of this and if it's interesting to you. I think it's a place for us to see if anybody, yes, Teresa Forrest and her husband Pete, they are living in New Zealand. Anybody else who has ancestors who went over to New Zealand, please get in touch with them. They're dying to find others down there. So anyway, take care, everybody. Ciao, ciao. Buona serata. Stay healthy, stay happy, stay together, stay united, just stay connected. And I'll see you next Friday for Filo Friday. Bye.